Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and this morning we have the highway range test on the 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV. In today's test, we're going to head out on the highway, do about 25-30 miles out, and then come right on back to the same spot, charge the vehicle back up to full, see how much electricity we used, and from that, calculate an efficiency and a total range based on battery capacity. All pretty straightforward, scientific stuff, but replicated here in the real world to get you kind of a real world number, if you will. If you're not aware, the Bolt EUV is a little bit larger version of Chevy's electric vehicle, the Bolt EV. So you've got the Bolt EV and then the Bolt EUV utility vehicle, I guess. Redesigned here recently, and technically a new model, the EUV. It's got 247 miles of EPA estimated range in mixed driving, but the EPA estimates you'll get about 224 miles on their highway test. So we're going to see if that proves true here today. If you do want to see more on the Bolt, check the links in the description. I'm going to be testing the Bose audio system on this test, a little infotainment review, and a DM review. Without any further ado, let's get rolling. Unplug our Grizzle E charger. Shout out to Grizzle E. They don't give us any money, but we like their product, so that's my plug for them today. A few things to note for today. Outside temperature is about 72 degrees, pretty ideal conditions. It's going to get warmer as we drive, but it shouldn't heat up too much. Tire pressures have been set to their door placard 38 psi cold. And when we get in, we're going to be running the climate control at 73 degrees auto. Now this might activate some sort of compressor. Ooh. So dramatic. This might activate some sort of compressor or heater or anything, but realistically, that's how most people drive in the real world. They just hop in their car and go. They don't screw around with preconditioning or planning out their HVAC or anything like that. And that's what we're trying to replicate here, real world results. So we're going to reset our GPS here. Come on. Power the vehicle on. Climate control, 7.3, auto. No sort of eco mode. We do have a sport mode. We're going to leave that off. AC and heat buttons both have an on and off. So if we turn that off and press auto, okay, it is activating AC. Good to know. We're going to reset our trip computer. Anything to reset in the energy screen? Doesn't seem like it. All right, let's get rolling. Reset our average speed. I am going to drive to the highway with one pedal driving on. I know you could argue the fact that, technically speaking, coasting is going to be a little bit more efficient than regenerative braking until you get up to some place you have to stop, but I think most people are going to drive this with regen on with one pedal. And I will say, with the battery all the way charged up, regeneration is not as strong as when we were driving it yesterday with the battery worn down a little bit. It's a little bit more like the Tesla products where your regen is limited at full charge. There are a lot of new electric vehicles where you have full regen even at full charge. They kind of have some sort of buffer or brake blending technique there, but off the throttle and just barely slowing itself down, I'm gonna have to use the brake pedal. All right. So far, I've liked driving the Bolt around. It's a nice, carefree little car, very easy to drive. You do hear a decent amount of mechanical noise, the drivetrain noise in there. It's not fake, it's just there. And actually, I kind of like how it doesn't make a fake whooshing sound or anything at slower speeds like all of the Korean cars. So without one pedal mode on, this thing coasts pretty well. I guess we're getting a little bit of regen happening to kind of make it feel like a normal gasoline car. But we've got about 2 miles to get to the highway. Look at that nice Maverick. Got about 2 miles to get to the highway, and we'll pick up the test from there. Well, the goal of this trip isn't to hypermile. We're not trying to get the best possible range out of this car, but rather a realistic number. In order to do that, we're getting up to highway speed here at a reasonable pace, and we're going to set our cruise control at a GPS indicated 72 miles per hour. That should give us about an average moving speed of 70. This car is actually not too loud on the highway for being a quote-unquote cheaper electric vehicle option. Not bad. Also, the speedometer is dead accurate as well. 72 on the dash is giving us 72 on the GPS. And we have Super Cruise on this one, which means I can set our cruise right there. Looks like setting at 73 is still giving us 70. Oh no, that's up to 73 as well. So I'm going to drop that down. Engage Super Cruise. Unfortunately, we learned yesterday on our live drive that Super Cruise... Oh, I don't think I can see my eyes with the camera on. Darn it. So I'm going to have to use Super Cruise after I film. But apparently Super Cruise on the Bolt is not the same as Super Cruise on the Silverado we recently had. The Silverado would change lanes automatically as it came up to a slower vehicle. Apparently the Bolt cannot do that. I find it disingenuous and confusing to have two different types of Super Cruise, but apparently that's how GM wants to do it. So keep in mind, not all Super Cruises are created equally. But either way, we're going to keep rolling here and keep an eye on our range and our electricity usage, and I'll catch up with you at the end. In the meantime, enjoy this time lapse of the entire trip. Coming into the end of the highway fuel economy test here in the Chevy Bolt EUV. According to the car's trip computer, we're getting exactly what EPA says we're going to get, although it might still be a little bit a hair under that. But 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour. According to the EPA's range and efficiency estimate, we should be right around 3.44. Obviously, this doesn't go to the 100th place, so we don't know how specific that is, but I know we did just roll over 3.4, so I don't know if the car's rounding up from 3.35 or if it's a solid 3.4. Either way, we're at about 75% charge after 57 miles, so coming right in there, at least preliminarily, around somewhere around 220-ish miles. Oh man, that Expedition's really squeezing things in here. Sketchy. Either way. Oh yeah, I know, I'm slowing down. Calm yourself. I joke, but I do appreciate the collision avoidance and warning tech and everything, automated emergency braking. Anyway, about in line from what I would have expected doing those speeds, 72, 73 miles per hour or so, 220-ish miles. Other than that, this thing's actually a pretty fine highway cruiser. It's quieter in here than I would have expected. Bose sound system, not fantastic. Check the link in the description if you want to see more on it. Pretty disappointed in that one. There's also a bit of wandering on the highway. These very skinny tires are not super confident in tracking nice and straight, so that coupled with the very light steering creates a little bit more effort that you got to put in if you're not using Super Cruise, and there are some limitations to Super Cruise. I find it a bit frustrating that when using Super Cruise in this car, it's not the same as Super Cruise in the bigger cars. I did confirm with GM that yes, this is an older version of Super Cruise and it's not going to work the same as the newer cars. Frustrating in my eyes, but I mean, what are you going to do? I also do appreciate that in the Chevy cars like this, it tells you what's been using your electricity since your full charge. So it says we've used 17.1 kilowatt hours. Come on, Cadillac, let's go. Now 17.2 kilowatt hours, and it says that 94% of that was used with driving and accessories, and 6% was used with the climate. So in theory, if you really needed to stretch out your range, you turn off the climate control and get an extra 6% of charge. So we're gonna head back to the house, plug this thing in, and get it all the way charged up, and do some calculations based on the electricity put into the car, and see what our final readout is. Bolt should be charged up by now, so let's hop in, do some calculations. Charge complete. Oh wow, it's really warm in here. I'm going to run some AC. It's hot out today. We ended up traveling 60 miles on our test. About 4 of those miles were off the highway, so 57 or so on. We're going to do 61 divided by, actually we need to do a quick calculation. The charger provided 19.3 kilowatt hours, but we assume about a 90% efficiency from level 2 charging. So 19.3 times, clear, 19.3 times 0.9, that gives us 17.37. We need to do 61 divided by 17.37 is giving us an efficiency of 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. That's a little bit better than the EPA's estimate. Not too bad. We do have a 65 kilowatt hour battery in here, so 65 times 3.5 kilowatt hours, right about the same, giving you an effective highway cruising range of 220 miles, just over that, here in the Bolt EUV Premier, I suppose. We have some different wheels maybe than the LT, at just over 70 miles per hour. So a decent amount of range, definitely in line with some of the competition. But what I haven't really touched on yet that I wanted to point out for everyone is the Bolts and the Bolt EUV can only DC fast charge, level 3 charge, at up to 50 kilowatts. Now compare that to a lot of the other leading electric vehicles that, yes, might be a little bit more expensive, but they can fast charge at levels up to 350 kilowatts. So if you do take a road trip and you do need to DC fast charge, it's going to take quite a bit longer than a lot of the competition, and that is what kind of puts the Bolt mostly out of the running for us. Perfect example, just tonight, right after I finish this video, we're going to leave and head out to Alyssa's parents' house. Round trip, it's 280 miles, mostly highway. So we would have to stop and charge up the Bolt, and we've done that trip with 3 other electric vehicles. Typically takes about 15 minutes of charging. So we pull off the highway, plug in, do something on our phones, maybe go for a quick walk, get back in the car, and away we go. In this car, it would take 50 minutes of charging to do that exact same trip. So that's too much for us. We're not going to take it. We're going to drive the Maverick. And it's a shame because I would like to be in this car for that trip. It would be a nice road trip car, but that slow charging speed kills it for me. Either way, that's what you can expect to squeeze out before you do need to pull into one of those slower 50 kilowatt DC fast chargers, or just get yourself back to a level 2 and charge up that way. So if you do a lot of just around town driving, the Bolt's a perfectly good option. Thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the Bolt EUV, check the link in the description, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.